For the first time in channel history, I can say that most of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. So if you like this video, consider subscribing. You could always change your mind later, but please don't. And enjoy. A few years ago, the whole country had a field day making fun of a very specific but forgettable state. In fact, there was a period of time where even I doubted the existence of Wyoming. But I ended up going, and to my disappointment, it wasn't just some gigantic void or interdimensional black hole. It's a real place where a couple people live, and also a great place to take online dating profile pictures. That meme fizzled out like most often do, but now a new state has a target on its back. Many tremble at the mention of its name as legend grows of it being a place that makes the Upside Down look like California coastline level real estate. Tales of goblins pillaging the innocent, child sacrifice, and lots of corn. So enter, only if you dare. And yeah, I'm talking about Ohio. That was probably obvious considering how beat into the ground the joke is. Ohio has grown popular in the last half of the year as most pretend like the Book of Revelation is taking place there. As a resident of the Midwest, I'm no stranger to the depression and misery that is this place, so I felt qualified to take a deeper dive into this matter. Not that any sort of qualification has ever stopped me from talking about something, so we'll see how this goes. I want to break this thing down in an effort to understand, but also to make my case that there is a much more deserving state for all of this slander. So, kick back on the couch, pop some popcorn, and for my Ohio watchers, make sure you have your vampire repellent crucifix on, and let's dive in. And just to stay right off the bat, a lot of the information in this section was found on one of those Know Your Meme websites, so thanks to them. The first trace of Ohio in any meme goes back to the Ohio versus the World meme in 2016, with this being the main example. The idea that Ohio was literally going to take over the world drove the meme for a while, but it came and went as a meme like most do. That was all up until recently when this poor guy started getting flamed left and right. All of a sudden, Ohio represented everything that people hate about the Midwest, suburban America, dystopian society, and somehow banshees and vampires all in one. And some of that makes sense. Well, at least the first half does. I'm still not really sure how all this apocalypse really ties into it. If you're scrolling through TikTok or Instagram and see anything slightly out of the ordinary, open up the comments and what you'll find is some crappy Ohio joke at the top. A natural disaster, flooding in the Philippines? Open up the comments, Ohio. So original. A horrifying public toilet covered in crap. The comments, only in Ohio. Go to any 7-Eleven convenience store and I guarantee you it'll look the exact same. And finally, a disabled group of dogs celebrating their birthday. I mean, isn't that sad? The comments? Ohio dogs. Delete Instagram and never comment again. It's not that the whole thing isn't funny, I mean that last one definitely was, but the whole thing is just so repetitive that it's getting really forced half of the time. But somehow these bottom of the barrel, easy comments still manage to top most of these posts. And let's just get this out of the way. There are not brain-eating grasshoppers in Ohio. There are no unmatched natural disasters of biblical proportions ravishing Ohio, and there are no curses upon the firstborn sons in Ohio either. Just a lot of corn and two historically bad orange-themed football teams. And how does lore this ridiculous get started about a real habitated place? Were the actual negatives about Ohio not enough to actually roast this place? And there are good reasons to roast Ohio. Cleveland has 3 professional sports teams and 1 championship in the past 60 years to show for it. Skyline Chili, being your state's signature restaurant, is, and I mean this wholeheartedly, bone-chilling. And I will never, ever, as long as I live, step foot in a place called Toledo. And the problem with all of this is I'm from Indiana. I have a lot of nerve saying any of this when my state was probably the next best guy for the job. And here's some fun lore about Indiana. We got in a lot of trouble a couple generations ago for cutting down pretty much all of the trees, so any forests you do see were just planted a couple years ago. Northern Indiana was home to one of the biggest wetlands in the entire country, and it was all completely drained just so that it could look like this. And for 20 whole years, the Colts had either Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck at quarterback and have a single Super Bowl win to show for it. Indiana has a lot in common with Ohio, but so does every single Midwestern state once you get into it. But there is a single, glaring difference that separates us from them completely. The craziest part about any single person who lives in Ohio is not that they choose to live there, it's that they think their state is the best in the country. And that is the single biggest difference between us and them. Every other Midwestern state knows that we live in the hub of the nation's depression. Ohio, on the other hand, is in complete denial. The pride that that state has for itself will never not confuse me, for the reasons we've already discussed and more. The only good way I can put it is that continuing to defend and praise Ohio is like continuing to praise and defend Kanye after everything he said recently.
But I may be slightly autistic.
You don't have to, bro. Like, not a single person cares that you live in a bad state. You don't have to keep defending it. You could just be like the rest of us. Someone asks me, oh, where are you from? I say, oh, Indiana. They say, oh, I am so sorry. And I say, yeah, I know. For that reason, I think Ohio really has it coming in terms of all of this slander, but it still gets far more deeper than this. Which state is actually the worst? Well, it's not quite that simple. In the Midwest, you are either in the void or you're not in the void. There's no really in between. Now, what's the void, you might ask? The void is the part of the country that can be characterized by its lack of trees and flat landscape. So basically, it's just the picture of a cornfield I keep showing with Minecraft cave music. In order to help everyone understand the boundaries, I'm going to draw a quick map. So, we'll go ahead and start in Indiana. I would say it kind of tilts up like this. This kind of goes up in the middle of the state. This is probably about Indianapolis. This lower half, really hilly. Lots of trees. You know, I would not consider that void. But everything north of this, no trees, all cornfield. That is true void. Then as you go to the right, this line kind of continues to tilt up. And we'll go ahead and we'll like loop around. And also, if you go north of Lansing, Michigan, so everything in here continues to be void through Michigan, but up here, the trees come back, and so do the hills, and we're back to not void. Go over here, Wisconsin, that line continues to go up, and also through Minnesota. You see, this is all void too. The Dakotas I would also consider a different animal, though. You know, it's not really Midwest, but it sort of is. There's also some really cool stuff in South Dakota. I mean, you got Mount Rushmore, mountains. I mean, that's crazy. We don't understand what mountains are here. It's all flat and scary. But we'll go ahead and loop down here. Everything in Nebraska and Kansas, oh my gosh. This is where true void is. There were never trees here. You know, it's always been like this. So, yeah, those two are definitely. And also Missouri kind of is. Missouri has some hills down here. And so does Illinois, barely. But basically, this is what it looks like. It's kind of like some sort of, I don't even know what that looks like. But this is the boundaries of the void. Compared to the rest of the Midwest, I don't really think Ohio deserves any more hate than a place like Iowa does. A state that is completely and entirely consumed in the void, like Nebraska or Kansas. But even among all of those, there is one state that deserves the most hate by far, and that state is Illinois. I don't know if everyone just forgets about Illinois because of Chicago, but Illinois is guilty of everything that Ohio is times a million. I lived in Illinois for a semester, and I personally know the toll that state takes on a man. Go to McDonald's and get a sandwich that usually costs you $4. In Illinois, it's going to cost $12.99, and that's just the sandwich. That's not fries. That's not a drink. I don't even know what it's for, but it's like 5 times the price. You don't know what a bad road is until you've driven on an Illinois state highway. How hard is it to fill a frickin' pothole? Is the tax revenue, that's not like double what Indiana's is, which it definitely is, not enough to afford to fix a pothole? Is every tax dollar just spent keeping Chicago alive, like from self-exploding or something? Oh, and Chicago, Detroit's almost his ugly younger brother. You make Cleveland's 60-year drought look impressive compared to the Cubs' 108-year-long World Series drought. The suburbs are growing incredibly fast as people try to leave the poverty-stricken, violent streets. Every single problem that city has seeps into the rest of the state, and even to the northwest corner of Indiana too. They can't just have their problems and keep it to themselves. They're affecting the states around them too. If there was a state with goblins and vampires, it would absolutely be Illinois before Ohio. There's not even a comparison between the two. But in the end, are the void or the Midwest even really different from the rest of the country? It's no secret that the Midwest is home to some of the least desirable real estate in the country. Why would you ever choose to live in the cold void when you could live in the mountains or on a warm coastline? But the real question is, why do any of us live where we do? The Midwest was stripped of pretty much everything in order to produce the crop it does and feed the country. Entire grand forests were reduced to just patches of trees off the interstate, and entire swamps were drained, but the country could not survive without it. Everything about the Midwest was stripped of its natural state pretty much to cater to society, but so is pretty much every single other place and city. Think about it, this whole country is incomparable to what it looked like just a couple of generations ago. The gigantic footprint of cities and exit ramps continues to grow outward as the suburban sprawl grows more and more powerful every day. Entire coastlines are covered in trash just so that Mr. Beast can fight day and night to clean them up. So yeah, maybe life in Indiana or maybe Ohio isn't the most eventful, but neither is your life in New York City or Miami. Your weekdays consist of working your butt off, or maybe just going to school and making little effort connections to the people around you. Your weeknights consist of watching the same decades-old television shows repeatedly through. And then your weekends consist of going to the same restaurants, the same malls, and the same bars as you did last weekend, over and over again. And then on your once-a-year vacation, you'll go to some other place and think, man, it would be so awesome to live here. But the truth is, it wouldn't be awesome to live there. If you moved there, you'd be used to it within the month, and then you'd be back to your same day-to-day schedule, hating your life. And then you would find a vacation and go on it somewhere else, and lust after that place instead, and the cycle continues to go on and on. We're all just tigers pacing in our cage, waiting for our next meal, or maybe just waiting for a toddler to fall in. I live in Indiana. You might live in LA. The only difference between us is the address of the Chili's we go to when we want to be fancy. And I honestly don't say this just to be depressing. I think it just goes to show that the main factor in an interesting life comes down to the people you have around you. If you have real and good connections, you should be able to have fun doing just about anything. In the end, Ohio, you're guilty, but not any more than any other state is. And Indiana, for now, you're what I got. Maybe one day I'll escape you, but for now, let's make the most of it. Illinois, you're super guilty, and you're devoid of anything that makes me happy. You deserve a special place on death row.